Welcome to A Seat at the Table. I am your host, Miss Stephanie. Tonight, I have the pleasure of talking to two amazing women, Leela and Nisi J. Today, they will be sharing their story about the version of them that no one ever expected. Thank you, ladies, for joining the seat at the table. How are you guys today?
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm great.
You guys introducing yourself and just telling our audience a little bit about you, and I'll start with Leela.
Hey. Hello, everyone. Thank you again, Stephanie, for this amazing opportunity. I am Leela Stovall. I am the CEO of Leela Speaks. I'm an author, a speaker, and I just recently authored a book called 72 Months. It's a personal, urbanized, psychological memoir of resilience, reinvention. It's a period in my life because it is a memoir that talks about that being in a certain place or doing certain things doesn't define who you are. I'm also a mental health therapist. I live in the state of Michigan, so I do my practice there. I often help people close the gap of where they are and where they're capable of being. And I kind of call that the CEO gap. My story is something that I had to build and figure out brick by brick. And I won't say it was difficult, but it wasn't easy either. And I just want people to know that sometimes we stop when we've made a mistake and we feel like we can't move forward, but that isn't true. I'm a person who has, I call myself, what did I say I was earlier? I'm a professional at starting over. So I want people to know that no matter what they do, no matter if they stumble or fall, no matter what's going on in their lives, they can rise and move forward to a better place. That's
I
about it.
like that. You said you are a professional at starting over. And I think a lot of people they stop and they just stay stagnant because they're afraid to start over, but not realizing that you can start over how many times you want until you get it right. So thank you so
Mhm.
much for sharing and thank you for pulling up to the table. Nisi, Miss Nisi J, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and reintroducing yourself?
Yes, my name actually, well, let me thank you for allowing me to be on this podcast with you ladies. My name is Tanisha Jordan, but in the author world and acting world, my name is Nisi J. Um, I am a three-time author. I'm an actress, producer, director. Been acting for 4 years. I'm an early childhood education teacher as well. Um, I'm a grandmother. I'm a mother of two. Yeah, listen, there's so much about me that I really don't want to sit and talk about right now because I'll be here all day. But I am, like I said, I'm a, author and an actress, and that is something that has helped me throughout, my journey of hurt and pain. So that has done a lot of it helped. It's helping me. It's changing me. And so I can't wait to share my story.
Thank you. Well, ladies, tonight's conversation is called The Version of Me They Never Expected. Sometimes people meet one version of us and they assume that's who we'll always be. They remember our mistakes, our struggles, and the person we used to be. But they don't always get to see what it took for us to get to where we are right now. So that is the topic that we will be discussing tonight. If there is any questions that I ask that you guys do not feel comfortable with answering, please feel free to let me know. This is a judgment-free zone. We are not here to judge. We are here to tell our stories and we can agree to disagree. And we're just here to help one person heal one person at a time. So thank you again for joining us. Before we get deep into the conversation, if you had to, and I like to do a warm up question. So, if you had to describe the woman you are today in 3 words, what would that be? And we'll start with Nisi.
The woman that I am today, 3 words: strong, determined, and resilient.
All right. Leela, if you had to describe the woman you are today in 3 words, what would you be? What would you be?
Let me think. Resilient, audacious, and unapologetic.
Mhm. If I had to describe me today in 3 words, one, I would say unbreakable, unbreakable, driven, and focused. I feel like I've spent most of my life feeling like I was broke. And I think I allow certain situations, people, and things, all of those now, to feel like they broke me. But today I'm in a better place. So yeah, I think that would be my 3 words. When you hear the title, The Version of Me They Never Expected, what does that mean to you personally, Leela?
Um, the version of me they never expected. Well, I don't want to say I grew up from a broken home, but I grew up with some dysfunction, and I was often chastised or spoken to harshly, dealing around colorism. And so I would want people to know that being in a home that wasn't perfect didn't stop me from moving forward. I didn't let it limit me. It had a big uh, influence over me growing up, but as I grew older, had lessons, um, dealt with life, I started to understand that the people that were saying things and so forth to me were broken themselves. So um, the version of me now, broken home, incarceration, uh, convicted more than once. But now the version of me is speaker, author, mental health therapist licensed in the state I'm in. And a little bit, those two things really don't go together because how does one do that? But like I said, my story didn't break me, it built me. So I was able to move away from things that happened to me when I was young and step upon them instead of standing in them growing up.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Nisi, the version of me they never expected. What does that mean to you personally?
It means pretty much the same as her. I when I tell you I dealt with a lot growing up, I came from a two-parent home, right? And everybody saw me and my sister in a two-parent home. They thought it was a perfect home. Nothing is perfect. My parents were not bad parents at all. I didn't have any issues there. But behind them, from other family members and stuff like that, things have happened. And even going through those adversities and the hurt and pain, people did not see that because I kept a smile on my face. I kept, you would never know because even when I wrote my book, people read it and was like, what? That happened? You could never tell, right? So no one ever expected that from me. And all of that was nothing but a, a stepping, a step stool for me.
Mhm.
And it got me where I am today. And so, even now, I don't hold grudges towards the people who hurt me. I actually thank them because of that, I am who I am today. So I accept everything that's happened in life and can't be mad. Just just keep pushing forward and just keep thanking everybody who's done wrong to me. So that's where I'm at.
I heard you say smile through the pain, and that's a mask that we all wear. We always want to smile through the pain. When I think about the version of me that they didn't expect it, I quite opposite of you guys. I didn't have the two-parent household, but what I did have, my mom did the best with. I wasn't. a child that was neglected. I was one of the girls, the long hair, had all the Barbies and things like that. But even with all of that, there sometimes can be a disconnect, right? You can have everything physically, but maybe not everything mentally, And it goes back to something Leila said when you said sometimes the dysfunction of families or like hurt, it trickles down. So something that maybe wasn't given in one generation can't be given and given in the next generation until we heal. And I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that when it comes down to my own children. That I was a hurt parent. So every child did get a different version of me because some people I think my daughter had the first time mom, having a baby, trying to navigate life. But then by the time the boys came along, this teenager that was a mom that was trying to navigate life now and is trying to navigate through her own challenges, tribulations, trying to find herself and being hurt in the interim of it, they received that hurt parent. So I deposit some different things into them that I am now trying to rebuild, restore, remove. So I definitely understand that. So, but this version of me now is definitely a version that no one expected. I can honestly say that. So I want to be able to share your stories with everyone. I know we won't be able to tell our whole story, of course, because we don't have enough time for that. But I want to allow you ladies at least 5 minutes to be able to tell some of your story. And I know you may say, I have a lot to share. 5 minutes may not be enough, but give us a snippet of your story because as we continue with the conversation, there will be questions asked. So I'm sure some of the parts of your story that you may not get to share right now, that it probably will be asked in a question later on, and you'll get to revisit that story. And then also, this topic is just so dear to me that depending on how this conversation go, how the flow is, it is a possibility to come back and have a part two of this, if you ladies would like. So I'll start with you, Leela. Can you give us a little bit of your background?
Okay. Well, I don't know where to start. The beginning, the very, very beginning. I am um, I grew up in a home with a mom that was mentally ill. Mental illness ran in our family, schizophrenia, and so that was complicated in itself. So my life began very, very early. As early as age 5 and 6, I was at the grocery store shopping with food stamps, trying to determine how to make $7 by everything that was on the list. And so I often have said growing up when I was younger that I took care of my mom. I was the mom, and my mother was the child because I loved my mom, the version of her that I received, but I didn't always understand. People in my family would whisper about her. Later in life, I discovered that my grandmother as well was schizophrenic, and she was a lady that we would visit, but they wouldn't talk about. I didn't know what an AFC home or why she was there, but it made a big impact on me because what um, happens when you start raising someone at 5, you miss all your childhood. So I've always been very, very serious in life, no time for games, and just missed out on a lot by having that youth taken away from me. And I don't blame my mom. I knew she was sick. I loved her, so I didn't mind. Um, and she took care of me up until about age 9. She had a nervous breakdown, and so we went to live with a aunt in the family, and that's when a lot of that colorism started. I was picked on a lot, the wrong shade of skin tone, and it was held against me that I wouldn't become this amazing person that I am today because I was of darker complexion. And I carried that with me for many, many years, all the way through my 20s, maybe, just not liking my skin color, not like being me, just kind of being mad at the world because I didn't have a mom. And it took a toll on me for a long time. And I found myself messing with the wrong crowd, got myself in a little bit of trouble, got me a couple of sentences. I've been in trouble more than once. And my newest book, 72 Months, is a portion of my life while I was incarcerated. But the reason that book has come to life is I wasn't comfortable starting a memoir at the early age. So I wrote this first, placing myself kind of in the middle of my life as I look back on it to realize it wasn't as bad as I thought. I did have some bumps and scrapes, but again, those things didn't break me, they built me. And so I'm this woman today, fast forward, married. I have two adult children, one granddaughter that I love, that's 16, that I love, but I want to choke up sometimes. And I'm just loving what I do. I'm been a therapist for 12 years, but I'm moving away from it a bit to complete this book and to find my dream. My dream is to stand on stages and be on podcasts and run my mouth because I like to talk. Um, and so that's really pretty much me. I don't know if I went 5 minutes, but yeah, that's me.
We have 2 minutes left. Two
I have
minutes
2 minutes
left.
left. A lot of
Come
time.
on, share the
So,
story.
married, two children, granddaughter, want to choke her up. And let me think. I'll just focus a lot, I guess, on being a therapist. I think that growing up in a home with a mom who wasn't well led me to that space, but it took me a while to land upon it. I wanted to do something in psychology, and I didn't do well in courses. I think because I wasn't healed, I didn't understand the disease, what happened, why our family was the way it was. I have all of these people in my family, and I didn't know them while we were separated and divided. And as I got older, I learned a lot of it had to do with the mental illness, the stigma. My family comes, I guess back in the day, they were important. And so they were creme de la creme in the society pages. And those things created the separated and divide. But um, let me think. Therapy, yes. Me becoming a therapist was the greatest joy. The clinic that I worked at was, in fact, the clinic that I took my mother to all the time. And while I was there for 5 years. I think I always tell everybody when I started there, I said, "You only give me for a little bit of time. I'm here on borrowed time. I came to make sure that people receive services that I know my mother never received, being in and out of the mental institution, being in psychiatric places. They don't give good care. So I wanted to make sure that my clients that came across my desk all got amazing care and could kind of see some hope. And at the end of the day, that's what we all need. We need to know that where we stand now isn't always where we have to be. And that was important for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story. Miss Nisi J, would you share some of your story with us?
Absolutely. I grew up in Lorain, Ohio, which is right outside of Cleveland. And I was there, grew up there 39 years before I moved here to North Carolina. I, from the age of 6 to 11 or 12, dealt with so much from being molested from my grandfather, my father's father, and his brother, as well as a family friend. Um, Going through that was tough. I never got to really grow up as a child. I never got to see the world through the eyes of a child because of what I dealt with. It made me grow up fast. Um, you know, being touched and, you know, fondled on at that age, you start to, especially when you get up in, the 10, 11, 12 year old, I start to feel like a woman. And it was like, okay, I know this ain't right, but I started to grow up and do things that I shouldn't have been doing at, the ages that I was. But fast forward, I went through that, got started making bad choices, um, choosing the wrong people to hang around, choosing the wrong guys. Um, and because of that, I ended up in a abusive relationship. Um, and I was physically and mentally and emotionally abused with this guy. Um, Dealing with him, it was like, okay, enough is enough. Um, my dad, he was diagnosed with cancer during the time all of this was going on. And so I would keep a lot of what was going on in my life bottled up because one, I didn't want to, burden my father with the situations. And even with the molestation and all of that I went through, my parents didn't know for 22 years. I believe I held all of that in for about 22 years. And it was like a year before my father passed away is when I said something. And that was in 2004 was when I said something. Um, so going through all of that, it started to change. Let me say I started to see some things. I had a relationship with God. However, God started showing me more and more like you need to start leaning more on me, right? Because I kept praying on things like, why am I going through this, especially the abuse? Why am I going through all of this? Why have I gone through, these adversities? Why am I being molested? Why am I being physically, mentally abused? But because of me praying and finally listening to God, it was one of those you stand still and lean on me, things will go the way that they're supposed to go. Because a lot of times we will go through some things and we will take things in our own hands and we would think what we think is the right thing to do. Like I wanted to hurt somebody and I almost ended up in prison. I almost took somebody out, which was my second husband. I wanted to take him out. But God said, no, you need to be still. And so he was teaching me something. And again, it was taking me a while to really understand what he was trying to teach me. But when I finally realized what he was doing, he was making me uncomfortable to get me comfortable. And when I finally realized that in 2017 is when I sat down and wrote my book about everything that had happened to me. Um, God said, I pretty much he put me through all of this to share my story to help others. It's really never to hurt you. It's to it's to help you, but it's also to help others. I mean, we go through some things that we think is going to be hurtful to us, but it's also going to benefit you in the long run, and it's also going to help other people. And so I realized that that's what he was doing for me. So he had me write a book and tell my whole story. So I ended up telling my story of everything that happened. Um, Unfortunately, I was unable to tell my dad everything. My goal was to wait till he got better to tell him what his father had done. I did tell him what his brother done, and I didn't get to tell him what the family friend had done. He knew a little bit about the physical abuse, but I promised myself, I said, once he gets better out of the hospital, I will talk to him. Unfortunately, he ended up passing. So he never knew. My grandmother, I wanted to talk to her and tell her things that happened. She ended up passing. So when I put it in the book, my mom, that's when she really found out everything. So going through all of that actually shaped me into who I am today.
Thank you.
Um,
I
I
appreciate
um, am grateful to still be alive because there were times where I almost lost my life. I did attempt suicide as well, going through those things that I dealt with. Um, I, I'm just grateful for the fact that I was able to really listen to God.
And yeah, we're thankful. We're thankful for you being here, and we're also thankful that you, regardless of what that situation was, and that you had to adore. And we're sorry that you went through it, but we're glad that it didn't break you. It didn't allow you to take your life. So we are very thankful for you being here today because your testimony and your story, it will touch somebody and it will help someone. I when I think about, I'm listening to you ladies talk and I'm thinking about my story and I'm just trying to figure out, you ever look at yourself and say, girl, where did it go wrong? And I had, and it was like those moments of like, where did it go wrong? You know, um, for me, it was more so I grew up not knowing my self-worth. You understand that low self-esteem. And so that was one of the things that I tried to instill in my children. Well, one of you ladies said something about, oh, Lila, you said something about colorism. And believe it or not, people think it only happens to dark-skinned girls, but it doesn't. It happens to light-skinned girls too, depending on the area that you're in, I grew up in DC in Southeast, so imagine being a light skinned girl with red hair, right? Everybody else, they're black, they have black hair. I'm walking around, I'm light skinned, red hair, freckles, and I'm different. So I'm different to everybody, right? So just not knowing and people, are you albino? Are you albino? And at the time, I didn't even know. I always tell people I didn't even know what albino was. But for some reason, I had the good sense to say no because I didn't know what it was. I couldn't say I was going to be something that I didn't know, right? So I would always say no. But just like growing up in grade school, and you look different, so you're being called names like Woody Woodpecker or and kids were just so mean, like they were to things that they don't understand. I think the only thing that someone ever called me that I was like, okay, I'll be them was when Annie came out. And it was like, oh, you look like Annie. And I think in that moment that was just my turning point to kind of embrace what the kids meant to be mean into something good for me. So I was like, well, yeah, I look like Annie, but she had money and Annie is resilient or, she overcame whatever, but not having that self-esteem growing up led to relationships that was not favorable, I'm gonna say domestic relationships, but not having the self esteem to know that you're in a domestic violence relationship. So it's like, dude, you hit me, I'm gonna smack you back. I'm whoa, 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 turn, but I'm fighting. But who loves like that, right? Who? That's not how a relationship supposed to be, So just not having that knowledge of it and just not loving myself in that moment, and not loving myself and just like you said, making some bad decisions and things of that. So it did. It was a time, and then I started having kids, and then people looking like, okay, she had these kids now. She have all those kids. She not gonna be nothing. She not gonna want nothing. I'm not supposed to be who I am. I'm supposed to be the girl on welfare, stuck somewhere, living in public housing with the rats running over her, right? Because I done had all these babies, and now it's like, what do you do? The system is going to take care of her for the rest of your life, and much like you, Nisi, just the fact that someone had showed me God. And so I had that faith of a mustard seed, right? So even though I was going through all of this, the fact that I had that little piece of faith in me, I held on to it because I was like, it's gonna be better days. It's gonna be better days, I just remember just going through and everything and thinking that the people who you think would be there for you wasn't there. A lot of doors closed and a lot of people turning their backs on me, and it definitely, like I said, it definitely made me into who I am today. I took it, at one point it was like, either it's gonna make me or it's gonna break me. It was, and I was close to it breaking me. I can remember having those thoughts of like, oh, why am I still here? Like, what's the purpose, of being here? But then when you have some other humans that depend on you, then it's like, okay, what you gonna do? You
Mhm.
can end something and be a coward, But what is that going to do for the people you leave behind, the little humans that depend on you? So it was that moment where I had to say, you know what, I have to do better. I have to get better. And I just took everything everybody said I wouldn't go be, because I was a stubborn one, right? I was a hell raiser. I wanted to fight you. I'm gonna cuss you out. I'm gonna do all of these things. I'm gonna cut you. I was that person. So it was like, so when people say, you see people whispering about she ain't gonna be nothing. Oh, I took it. Oh, you think I'm not gonna be nothing? So I guess in becoming who I am was a little bit of like, I gotta prove them wrong. So I gotta become that person, even if I'm not becoming it just for me. I gotta
Hmm.
become that person to prove them wrong. So it's just amazing how you can go through those struggles and people can count you out, but what they say is not who you become, right? You're not gonna, what they say, you don't have to answer to what you're being called, right?
Right.
You're gonna answer to what title you become, who you want to be, what title you give yourself. So I definitely can understand and relate to both of your stories, and maybe not as much in certain instances that you all went through, but I definitely can see the how it could made you feel, how it made you not want to be healed, or how it made you feel like the world was coming to an end, but you had the strength and the courage in the end to keep going through it. So I appreciate you guys for it. So what did you have to let go to become the version of yourself today? The version that you are today. What are some of the things you had to let go, Leah?
Um, I think one important thing was as growing up, even though I cared for my mom, I was mad at her for not being the moms that I saw at school that would come for parent teacher conference and would do things with their kids. I was angry at her for not being that person. And as I got older, I started to identify. And when I learned more about the illness, I was able to learn that it wasn't her fault. She wasn't doing it on purpose. And when I was able to forgive her uh, through some help from a great therapist, I was able to find my way a lot easier.
Nisi, what is something you had to let go?
I had to let go of, I had to let go of the hurt that I was holding on to for so many years. I had to learn how to forgive those who had hurt me in order for me to get where I needed to be, because it was drowning me, just holding on to that. And so in order for me to move forward and to find happiness, I had to learn how to let go of the hurt and just understand again, every bad thing is not uh to hurt you. It's some of these things are just, it's a lesson. It's something that's going to strengthen you. And so I had to let it go. And when I let go, and forgave, then it made me who I am right now.
Yeah.
Made life a lot easier. I will say that.
I had to let go anger. I was so angry and I held on to it. And you don't realize that when you're holding on to something, it's heavy inside, right? It's heavy. Like you're carrying around this. If you're carrying around a weight, you're literally carrying around a weight inside of you. And I remember I could just be so angry and bitter and ugly. And it just, I don't know. And I just remember one day just praying every day, God, help me lift this. Help me lift this load. Help me lift this load. And I needed help with it, right? In our culture, we was told, we'll go on in this house, stay in this house. So that's why half of us don't seek the mental health help that we need, because we live with that stigma, right? That we can't go and we can't go share. And not everything you're sharing is bad. Some people are in therapy and everything that they could possibly want in life is going right for them, right? But they just still need that guidance and that direction to help them get to where they need to be. But I started I was put in a situation where I had no choice but to go to therapy. It was like, hey, either you gonna go to therapy or you gonna deal with some consequences, you know. So therapy it was. And it helped me. And I remember it took a whole year. I carried because you thinking about you carrying around so much anger in you for so long. That it's not gonna leave overnight. I don't care how much you pray, how much you do, it's just not gonna release overnight because you still will have a trigger there, right? And so I remember being a year into therapy and waking up one day and saying, oh my gosh, I'm not angry at this person anymore. I'm not mad at this girl anymore. You know, because I remember, you know, just I guess I was an angry person, and I remember I can laugh about it now, but I remember I probably made my brother merge a living hell because me and my sister-in-law we did not get along, and the younger version of me, baby, every time what these young kids say, it was on sight every time we seen each other. I don't think it was one family function that we went to that we wasn't throwing hands on each other. It was
Oh
like it,
wow.
and so I'm honestly, and I remember saying, God, you gotta release me from this because you know, you already feel like the black sheep of the family, right? And then you got this going on too. So, you know, you're not being invited to them tables. You're not being invited to them functions, you know. So I really did. I had to pray to God to help me let go of that anger because it was that it had a stronghold on me. And I definitely had to let it go. You know, and I think now it's one of them it's like I know where how angry I can get, and I'm sure you ladies probably go through this. Like, you know, if you tip that scale, and if you just go put that one, just step over just a little bit, that's gonna open up a door to try to get your foot all the way through. So I try not to go there. So it's a lot of times, a lot. I find myself now saying, "Girl, just walk away. Go on and take a walk. Don't even entertain it." You know. So I live by my motto for me is you don't have to you don't have to participate in every argument that you're invited to. You know, and so that's what I've been. That's what I live by now. So I definitely understand that. Um, a few things I heard you guys talk about was you talked about mental health. You know, and let's touch on that because again, a lot of people don't know how important mental health is. You know, we just think that we supposed to stop crying and get over it, you know. And that's not how stop crying before I give you something to cry about situations, those moments, you know. And that's not how it is. So can you guys share with me how was it did you guys seek help with like for your own mental health to be able to help you? I know you've been through a lot, you know, and I know you talked to I believe one of you guys said you did talk to a therapist, but what was like that pivotal moment that you knew I need help? The only way I'm gonna get through this and release this is if I get help. And Nisi, you can start.
Well, it took me a long time to decide to talk to a therapist because, again, with us, we feel like we can get through this on our own. We feel like I think we're stubborn at the end of the day, you know, as us people, we are very stubborn and we feel like we can make it, we can do it. But at the end of the day, that's not always the case.
Mhm.
So, it took me to go see a therapist. However, I did seek one and I saw her 3 times. And I felt like, you know, even going through that, I didn't feel comfortable. I
Mhm.
feel like sometimes seeking help, and I could be wrong, but for me, I don't feel like if you're not there with me going through what I've gone through, yes, you've gone through school and you dealt, you know, you got your credentials and things like that. But if you're not literally there with me to understand what I've gone through, you really can't help me. Which I can't say that's for everybody, but that's how I just felt at that moment. I was like, she can't help me. She wasn't there. She can't tell me to do this or do that. She wasn't there. So I was being stubborn. But when it came to me attempting suicide, that's when I was like, okay, all right. Yeah. So now at this moment, I'm in the hospital for a week having to see a doctor and things like that. So it had to go that far for me to really sit down and talk to somebody because, I didn't want to leave my kids. I really didn't, but I didn't want to continue to endure all that pain that I was dealing with.
Mhm.
But at that moment I was like, yeah, something's got to give. So sitting there talking to someone, the doctor actually that I was seeing during that time really got me through. So it wasn't a long process or nothing like that, but the time that I did spend talking to that doctor, it helped me. It did help. I don't feel like you have to be in therapy forever to get through, Um, but I just feel like once I decided that I wanted to take my life, yeah, it's really time for me to sit down and talk to somebody. So
And it's also about finding the right fit, right? You can sometimes just because you start off with one therapist doesn't mean that they're the right fit for you. And it took me times to learn that. I remember just going and I'm sitting there and I'm talking to somebody and I'm talking to them and I'm really not getting anything out of it besides you want to give me a prescription. Really, in the end, if you
Mhm.
really think about it, and you thinking about I'm gonna go take this prescription, but what is gonna mellow me out? Okay, the prescription gonna have me feeling away, but I'm still not talking. I'm still not getting it through. So then I decided I left, went back, and then the second therapist, I was just like, knew something was off. I was just like, nah, I think for therapy is you do need the right fit, and then the culturally, depending on what you're going through in your life in that moment, you may need another brown woman that look like you in that moment to help you. I'm not saying that a person of another race couldn't, but it was a moment that I had a pivotal moment where I went to see a therapist, and she was like, "Read these 3 books." And I'm like, girl, read the 3 books. You just want me to go read the books. And here's where the pivotal moment came was my whole kid just died in a car accident. And you telling me read a book? I need a little more than a book right now. So it made me say no, and then lo and behold, the right one came along, right? And when a year into it, and she was like, "Oh well, I don't even you doing so good. We can cut back on something, right?" And I said, "Girl, friend." But that relationship, that trust had built. So, and then I just wound up being discharged and no medications, just the fact that she sat there with me and we did the work. And I was able to walk away, and if I ever need her again, I will reach back out to her. But she did. She got me to the point where I was able to do the work and with or without her, I was able to put those practices in practice, so in play. So, sometimes it is about finding the right fit. And Leila, I'm sure that
Mhm.
you can, because I know you spoke about that. So, yeah, what do you think? What was your
I
moment?
think I think so. It's a two-sided question, so I'll speak professionally just for a second, and then I will speak personally. I agree with what you said. Finding the right fit works. A lot of times people are under the impression that it's a one size fit all. I remember when I got ready to graduate, we have to write a disclosure statement of what modality we're going to apply when we see clients. And in my personal statement, I remember presenting 3 different modalities and they telling me that I couldn't turn that into the state. And I say, well, that will be ridiculous because one, all people are different. And why would I try to use the same therapeutic method on every single person I meet? And so I turned it in the way I wanted. And when I served my clients, I served in that same capacity. I meet people where they are. Sometimes it's a good fit. Sometimes it's not a good fit. Sometimes you need to refer out for someone to get medication. That's usually a psychiatrist. Sometimes It takes longer for somebody to unpack. You can't expect someone to do it in 2 sessions. So it depends on the person's needs. And if you are truly a professional in it for change, you understand how that process works. Um, but on the personal side, I was angry a little bit like you, with just life, people, my family not showing up when my mom was sick. I'm a little girl. When the heck is somebody go help me with this lady? All those thoughts went through my mind as a young kid, and I carried them into teenage life, into adulthood, young 20s, just being angry at the world, like keeping shutting people out, being really rude, being nasty, having resting bitch face, if you will. I can say that on TV. But I was just angry, and I carried it everywhere with me, and then I didn't want to anymore. I was getting ready to get heavy into school, go more into specifics of my major, and I wanted to understand why I was mad and how to fix that. And so my therapist gave it was a good fit. She did not look like me at the time. I didn't know, and I'll tell anyone: keep searching until you find a good fit. She was European, but she was able to assist me in ways that I needed to without color being an issue. And
Mhm.
so I'm grateful for her giving me lessons and assignments and awareness and mindfulness and just different techniques, not necessarily handing me a book to read, but walking with me, because in therapy, there's a partnership between you and that therapist. They help you walk and guide. I'm a pushy therapist. I might bump you a little bit, but that's the process. And so it might not be revealed right away. And a lot of times people want to go in and get instant gratification and want it fixed immediately. And that is not the way that it works. Not if you want true, long standing healing. And so that's what worked for me. I had a good therapist who had me do assignments, do tasks. We walked the journey together, and I got the closure and the understanding of why I was angry and how to get to a better place from that.
Yeah.
And not
I,
to,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
feel like, no, I was going to just say, for me, even with the one who handed me the book, it for me, it wasn't so much that I didn't want to read a book or anything like that because I'm an author, and of course I love to read, I love to write, I love to talk, But it was in that moment, in that season,
Absolutely.
just going in and we talking and you don't even really know why I'm here. You just you hearing I need this, but not really breaking down the walls. And I was in a I I unpacked so much when I found the right therapist, that it just helped me. I'm not gonna say I'm 100% healed. I still struggle some days with anxiety. Every now and then I may struggle a little bit with on the trust issue side. I try not to bring that, but every now and then I might look at somebody cross-eyed and be like, you trying to get over on me. But I'm not that girl that's just going to jump to the conclusion of you're getting over on me. I might look at side eye you a little bit, but I'm just, but I'm still doing the work. I still, and I believe that we can be healed, but we still sometimes you have triggers, things that try to pull you back, and it's about applying the work you've done, right, to be able to get through those triggers.
Yeah. I think for me, honestly, it was a trust factor,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
not being able to trust any. I mean, yes, you are
Right.
there to help me, but at the same time, because everything was so fresh, especially with the abuse, um, I just feel like I couldn't trust the people that I loved. So how
Mhm.
can how am I
Absolutely.
going to trust
Absolutely.
you to help me?
Mhm.
So I just didn't want, again, I tried, I attempted, the help, but there was just I just can't trust. I couldn't trust people then, and
Mhm.
so I just was like, okay, well, I'll figure this out on my own. And again, when I went to the hospital and I talked to the doctor, even though it was very short and brief with him, even after that, I figured it out on my own, and it was more again back to me just being able to pray. When I tell y'all, God was like, "Oh, you gonna get to know me one way or another, so you gonna deal with this like this." And so going through all of that, it taught me a lot, and it changed a lot. And I can honestly say that I'm about 98% healed from everything that I went through, And so I'm just grateful for just being able to lean on God because, ooh, it was a lot. It was a lot.
You said something that's actually taking me into my next question when you said I couldn't trust the people in my family. I couldn't trust the people that was around me, right? And so my one of my questions I had was, what was one of the hardest lessons you had to learn about yourself? And so for me, and going back to what you just said about not being able to trust the people in your family, for I had that lesson was I'm not gonna say so we're gonna say trust, but it's a little deeper than that. It was more so the hardest lesson is knowing that not everybody in your family is gonna root for you, right? Everybody's not going to see that growth and development, And part of it again is trust. For me, I spend a lot of time I revealed this to my mom recently. I said, Mom, do you know? And it's no disrespect to her, but it was just something I never shared with her. I said, do you know I chase so many dreams and I try to conquer so many things because I don't never feel like I do enough to make you proud of me, and and she never heard that from me, and it was like a moment of her, and she told me, she was like, well, I am proud of you, I should tell you more, but I am proud of you. But in that moment, before I had ever shared that with her, one of the hardest lessons I had to learn was that I have to do it for me and not worry about the approval of others, because again, that trust, I didn't feel like but to you celebrating yourself and you telling a relative, oh girl, I just wanted $1 million. I'm going to buy me a Bentley. I wish that was the case, but I mean, that is an example. And then somebody saying, oh, all they do is brag. All they do is brag. And we'll be set up in this society for people to make you feel like you're bragging, right? But you're not bragging, you're celebrating yourself. So that's when it came into play. Was one of the hardest lessons I had to learn was I had to build family outside of my family and get with people who celebrated me because I celebrated them, right? Then it became the lesson of people who celebrate themselves and want to see you win, they'll never use the word bragging. And that was one of the hardest lessons I had to learn, that
Yep.
my family may not celebrate me. My family may not be able to go on those levels that I'm going on. And it's okay. And I shouldn't feel guilty about it. And then it's okay to love me. It's okay to forgive me. It's okay not to and while I'm growing, not to keep a lot, because some of them gonna keep holding you to where you was at, right? So I feel like I'm in a season with certain people where they don't want me around, not because they jealous or anything like that, but this version right here they can't talk about when I leave because I'm doing
Hmm.
better. But that bitter,
Right.
excuse my language, that bitter bitch,
Hmm.
you can talk about, right? You can say
Yeah.
these things, forgive me for cussing, but honestly, you had a lot of conversations, to talk about. So again, that was the hardest lesson for me that I had to learn when changing myself. And I'll go ahead on and let Layla, you want to share what was one of the hardest lessons you learned? I'm sorry, Layla.
Um,
I keep saying Layla. I had a student named Layla. My apologies.
oh no, you're fine. One of the hardest lessons. I'm not sure. Maybe just forgiveness of self. When you make a mistake, we're usually the hardest on ourselves. I was the hardest on myself when I make a mistake, or made mistakes when I was younger. But after that great therapist and getting back on the horse, I was kind of like unapologetic, like one of the words that I used when you said describe three. And so I'm comfortable with starting over, dusting off my knees, but it took me a while to get there. So sometimes we think we grown because we turn 18, and now we grown because we 20, and we grown at 21 and 35. I might have just grew up last year at 54, but who really knows? When we grow up is different for every person. But understanding who you are, And forgiving yourself, I think, is something difficult for most people. And it was the most hardest for me. But once I learned to do it, I don't apologize anymore. I
Mm.
just show up and show out. This is me. It's not bragging or I'm trying to overshine or whatever it is. Because, all three of us in this room, we're all similar in so many ways. We have three different lives, obviously, but we have encountered some of the same stuff. The colorism, or would you say people, it's easy to talk about the bitter bitch, but not the person you've become. You never get applause or celebration for that. It's just what sometimes we as people are just miserable in our own right, and we don't want to acknowledge when someone else is doing well. But as long as you celebrate yourself or forgive yourself or trust yourself or give yourself permission, I think it's all going in the right direction.
That's you keep saying the word unapologetically, and that's so crazy. I have a book out saying, "Hey, friend, stay unapologetically you." And part of that was being birthed out of being true to who I am and forgiving yourself. And I love that you said you have to forgive yourself because we are the hardest on ourselves. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know how to forgive myself. I think my husband was a part of the reason I started forgiving myself. He started telling me, if you keep on letting everybody hold you to who you used to be, you're never going to be able to continue to move forward. You need to forgive yourself. You've done the work. Stop letting people get you stuck there. And if he hasn't taught me anything else, that was the one thing that he taught me that I really take and that I run with, that I had to learn how to forgive myself. So I hear you on that. Nisi, you want to chime in?
I pretty much agree with both of you. I mean, especially with I had to learn that everybody's not going to support you. Everybody's not going to go where you're going to go. Number one, and some people feel like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too. Yes, but your story is not my story. My story is not your story. So we're all on different paths. Um, I've learned that I can't depend on those that we should depend on, which is family. There's so many things, especially now where I'm at, especially in acting. It's like since I started acting, and I've been acting for 4 years, um, that they say that they're proud of you and they'll say they support you. I mean, I can't even get you to watch a movie. And when and and a lot of them will, but then you got some that won't. It's like, why? Is there a jealousy thing going on, or and then I got other people who say they support, but then there's always an agenda behind that. There's always something behind that. I've gotten, people say, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. Hey, can you get me in a movie?" So it's really not about me, about you supporting me. It's about you. So I just, it's hard to find genuine people nowadays when it comes to your elevation in life because nobody wants to see you win, honestly. You know, my mom and my sister, my kids, and my grandkids, like those are my biggest supporters. Everybody else, I have a best friend who supports me 110% outside of my, the ones I named. But I have friends that they say one thing, but again, there's something behind that. Hey, do you think you can get me on a movie set? Or, how can we it's like, yeah, no.
It's
So
the more you grow, you start noticing that phone start ringing a little less.
yes.
That noise
So
get a little
when you're
quiet.
down and out,
You don't get
yeah.
the invites get smaller, and it's okay. And then it's like
Yep.
you can see. I think for me, and I'm not. Let me make this disclosure on this. We're not family bashing. We're just speaking our experiences when it comes down to
Right.
certain things. Let me just put that out there. But it is funny how sometimes you could see somebody posting somebody else stuff, and then you look like I just wrote a book. They didn't even post my book, or you ain't got the bad postage.
Part
So
that
I get that. And then you find support in places where you probably think you wouldn't find support, or you find it in places where you never thought would show up for you. You find the support there. So understood. I just, yeah, I had people support me who I'm like, oh, you brought my book, like, oh, thank you, like, like, like one of my coworkers emailed me, was like, girl, I brought your book, it's good. And it just, you just like, wow. But then you go through some other people, you go to the family reunion and say, how many people brought your book? And they probably look at you like, oh, you got a book out. So, it's just, I mean, you just find support in the places that you least expect it. What is something you went through privately that people looking at you today will probably never know? Like, Leela, you want to start?
To pick, right? I want to be greedy. I'm going to pick two. I'm going to say people, uh, the incarceration part, people would never guess that. But the one that's most important to me is that I struggle with that colorism thing, my skin color for years. I just didn't like myself. Uh, didn't think I was pretty. I don't know if it was low self-esteem, but perhaps it was. But it was just maybe beyond low self-esteem, just a lot of hatred toward myself, how I wasn't good enough. Just hearing those conversations from my um, adults that were raising me that I had to overcome. But again, once those things were put in my rearview mirror, the successes were able to come and continue to come.
Okay. Nisi, what is one thing you struggle with in private that no one would look at you and know?
One thing I struggle with in private. Just trying to be better than what I was yesterday. People right now think, I have it all together, and they see the work that I'm putting in, but they don't understand what the work looks like. And so oh, it looks easy or this or that, but yeah, no one knows behind closed doors what. Ooh, people have no people have no idea. So it's the hard work that I put in, and again, just striving to be better than what I was yesterday.
For me, I think I still struggle with who well, I'm gonna say I struggle now with who I have become. Um, because it was just so easier to be that person they wanted me to be. And so now I'm not that person. So I've become this person where I don't want to. So now it's like I don't want to. It's not about disappointing them. It's about disappointing myself. So I have mornings where I get up and I'm like, okay, make sure the appearance is right. Make sure you have what you need. Make sure. I mean, I mean, it's not all necessarily a bad struggle. It's just reminding me that to continue to grow, I have to continue to do the work. So if people looked at me, they wouldn't understand that in private I struggle with the self-esteem, because now when I walk out the door, my head is held high, and I'm gonna walk into them rooms, and I'm gonna look you in your eyes, and I'm gonna speak, and I'm not gonna have anybody silence me, and you're definitely gonna respect me, and I'm gonna respect you. And so no one would ever know in privately that I struggle with that, because when you leave out the house, you got your hair on, your lashes on, your outfit together, and it looks like you got it all together. But they don't get to see the part where I've changed 8 times, because that little part inside of me still struggles to make sure that I'm showing up the way. So that, I think that's one of the biggest struggles that I deal with right now. What boundary did you have to learn to establish to change your life? Is there a boundary that you ladies had to establish to probably change your life in some way?
Boundaries for me, yeah, just keeping away the negativity. Like, I don't like to hear, all of that. You know, back when we were growing up, we thrived off of the negative, the BS, the drama. Now, yeah, no. I I don't want negativity around me. I don't like that negative energy. I don't like I have to set that boundary. Like don't bring that around me because as soon as you do, it sets the tone for something else, which is going to be that the bad side. I don't want that because as soon as you drift off to that, now everything starts to crumble. Things start to crumble. Things start to change. I don't. I'm in a space now where I'm happy. My career is thriving. I don't need nothing to mess anything up. And if it does, let me be the one to mess it up. I don't need you to come over here and help me.
Always say that to people when they try to share certain things. I always joke and say, I do enough to get me in hell. I don't need you to help me.
I
Let
don't
me
need
go on
no
over
help.
here. Let me go on over here. Leela, what about you? That one boundary that you have to establish.
Yeah, people, they don't like it and they often want to go around it. But I have learned over the years that 99% of the time, no means no. So I think being able to say no with certainty is one boundary that I respect and use often.
Mhm. I'm just learning I know means no and putting it in effect. I'm being honest with you guys. I would be one of the people to tell somebody no or say I don't want to do it and then I let them talk me into doing something anyway. But these days I'm really standing on that no means no. I'm finding with boundaries, people don't like you when you start putting up them boundaries. They don't like when you start just standing firm on and your peace and everything, and
Mhm.
one of the boundaries I'm standing on is you not going to disturb my peace. So if you're going to disturb my peace, I'm going to walk away because in my life, I thrived on dysfunction. I thought dysfunction was the norm. And so, because I thought that, I thought being loved had to be loved in dysfunction. Being taught if it wasn't dysfunction, it wasn't right because it wasn't fighting for something, right? But then when I found that peace, I was like, whoa, this is different. This is different, and I don't want to give this up. And I can say no. I can set my boundaries, and I can keep my peace. And so, yeah, that's what I think the biggest struggle with. Even with my kids, some days they want to call me and be like, "Mom, because this, I don't want to hear about it. Go work that out. Go work that out." And after today, you're not going to do it. And they be like, "Mom, you don't have what?" No, it's not that I don't never want to, but today I can't allow you to disturb my peace. And then I've also become big on people's energy and what I allow in my home and who I allow in my home. Because you come in here with the wrong energy, then you done set and shift our whole atmosphere in our home and we trying to be happy over here.
Yeah.
So yeah, those boundaries are definitely something you want to make sure that you're standing strong on. What is something people assume about you when they meet you that isn't true? Yeah,
That
I'll
I
go first.
mean,
Oh, okay, go ahead.
no, that I mean,
What you
because
mean?
sometimes I have that face, that look,
Always
and
gonna
they're
say
like,
Same,
that
same.
and it's
answer. You
like
always gonna
I'm
say that.
really not a mean person. They're like, oh, every time I see you, you just have this look about you. Your face is all. I don't know why I'm like that, but that's the first thing that I get. Oh, she mean. No, I'm really not. Then when they get to know me, they see that I'm really not a mean person at all. Not at all. I'm probably like one of the nicest people you can meet. I will give you the shirt off my back. I will help anybody. Um, like I have a hard time saying no because I am such a giving person. Because I don't like to see people struggle. I don't like to see people hurt. I don't like to see people without. So I'm always willing to give and help and do whatever I can. I would break my neck to help somebody. Um, so no, I am so that look that people get or see, I'm not that. For the record, people, if you're watching, when you watch, I am not a mean person. So yeah, it's yeah.
Okay. Lil, you had a word for it earlier. What did you call it? The something.
Resting
Resting
bitch
bitch
face.
face.
Okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
Resting bitch face.
That's what they call it.
I think ladies like us are intense. We're intense about our business. We have a purpose to uh, an agenda to get to, and sometimes we just want to weed out the nonsense. And that face sometimes saves us. But you can't judge a book by its cover. When you get to know people, if you want to know them, you generally can get past any of that. But I'll just call mine intensity. But I have that same thing too. She's me. I don't have it as much. I just try to look pleasant. I'm a deep thinker. I don't answer really fast. I try to, as selfish as it may sound, I try to put myself first in many situations. And a lot of times people don't like that, back with the boundaries and the no. But at the end of the day, sweet as pie. I'm a life path 6. I'm a zodiac girl, numerology girl. So I am definitely about, I probably die penniless and broke, feeding somebody, giving it away. But I think that just the weight of life makes me intense a bit. I don't mean to come off that way, but at
Yeah.
this age, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Maybe that'll yield off some of the people that I don't want in my space anyway.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that, but I'm not. I don't really feel like I mean, I feel like I may have that resting face because it's like you've been through so much now that your face just tell it. Like, girl, what are you doing? Like, we go and you might, I'm always like, we doing this again. You so not so. I don't mean to, and I think another thing people assume is that like I have it together. I think one of my pet peeves is I was a single mom, a young mom, and so now working in education, where you see other women going through things, and the first thing you know, somebody want to judge them and talk about them. Like somebody may have a couple of kids, and they'll say, "Look at them, well they shouldn't have da 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 da." And then I have to say, "Well, what does that look like? What does that?" Especially if it's something I've been through, I love to say to people, like, "What does that look like?" And I'll let them talk, and I was like, "Well, do I look like that, girl? You that no, but I was, and I probably was in a worse off situation than them." So just people just assume that you had it all together. So that's it for me. Well, ladies, I just want to thank you so much for coming to the table, pulling up a seat, and taking time out to share your story and to hang out with me. I pray that whoever watches this episode, that they would definitely get something from this and they will walk away with something. And before I let you go, there's a couple of things I want you guys to do. I know you guys are published authors and have other platforms. So I would like for you guys to just one, tell me something you're either taking away from the table or leaving on the table. And then after you answer that question, if you can just share where someone can reach you if they want to book you for a speaking engagement or purchase one of your books. And I'll start with Leela.
Okay. What I want to leave on the table is that um, trust in the process is important. Sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees or whatever the saying is, and we don't understand how things are going to find their way to the place they're supposed to be. But I know wholeheartedly for myself, I trust the process. Been in a lot of precarious situations that I don't know how I found myself to the other side of it. So I'll put it in the hands of the higher power. Faith and trust is important. So I leave for your future guests to trust the process, whatever they're going through, that hopefully they can find themselves to the other side of it, even if they can't see it at the beginning. Where can you find me? So my new book is 72 Months. My pen name is L.A. Armstrong. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and it can be found on my website, 72months.com. My other speaking brand, because my book is the conversation piece, it gets me in the room. I have a brand called Leela Speaks, and that is my speaking platform. While I unapologetically go into spaces and give women permission to stand up and move forward and reinvent themselves, to let them know it's okay if they're a professional at starting over too. So you can find me on all platforms under Leela Speaks. You can find me on my website, leelaspeaks.buzz. Or if you just want to reach out through an email, Leela@leelaspeaks.buzz.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much again. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Nisi, what is one thing you are either picking up from the table, one thing you're leaving at the table, and after you answer the question, please tell our guests where they can find you or purchase your book.
Um, what I would like to leave at the table is for all the viewers that just because you go through adversities or endure um, things that you feel are hurting you, sometimes that hurt is not something that is permanent. It's something that could be temporary. It's just it could be something that's teaching you a lesson. Um, don't always think that it's the end all be all. You know, sometimes we go through things and sometimes we are tested. And so we have, like they said, you have to trust, like you guys said, you have to trust the process, but it's all about you being strong enough to go through it. If you're strong enough to go through it, listen, you never know what's going to end up at the end of that tunnel.
All right.
You can find me at I am Nisi J. Or you can also go to my website, iamnisij.com. There you'll learn a little bit more about me. You'll um, see the movies that I've done, the books that I've written. Just it's everything Nisi J. So in short, iamnisij.com.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, again for joining. Thank you for sharing your story. To our guests and our viewers, we hope that this episode that you will get something out of it. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at A Seat at the Table 7205. Our Facebook page at A Seat at the Table on Facebook. Ladies, I wish you the best of luck. And I hope to see you again at the table. You are always welcome to come back again and pull up a seat at the table. Have a great night.
Thank
So,
you.
all right. Bye bye.
Bye.